what I want to do is take you through what we've developed in the area of passive measurement. What we've been exposed to today is a lot of discussion, a lot of innovation about the different platforms that are there. And I really want to take you through our approach to passive electronic audience measurement, something we've called MediaCell. So what I briefly want to take you through is the role that MediaCT play globally in terms of radio measurement, an overview competitively about the players that are in there, and a view about our solution, why we believe our solution has advantages in this marketplace. And then finally take you through a little bit behind the technology of what we do, and then also some details on the London trial that we've been running for the last number of months. All that in 10 minutes. So, essentially, why are Ipsos MediaCT involved in developing further approaches and methodologies for radio? Globally, we carry out research across 24 different countries, and annually complete or have engage over 500,000 interviews solely in the area of developing radio measurement currencies. This is not concerning custom research. This is all about developing radio currencies in over 24 markets. And traditionally we've used a range of diary, online, day after recall approaches across the different regions where we operate in. But we needed to develop, to cope with the plethora of platforms, the plethora of methods in which people can access content, an electronic approach. And so we dive deeply into the competitive market of developing a passive meter. And this chart gives you some sort of cross-comparison of what we do and what our competitors do in terms of both the device that we're using, but also the method of which we are approaching that, whether that is an encoded signal, which is the approach that we have primarily developed, or an audio matching technique. But what I really want to draw your attention to with this particular chart is the last two columns, which is really what we want to develop is a software approach. We don't want to get into the area of manufacturing of a particular device, because that has a cost barrier to entry. Also, what's crucial for us is minimising the burden that our panellists and our clients are engaged with. As AJ was alluding to, it's all about now minimising the involvement of the people engaged in the research, feeling they want to take part. We also want to get to a position where we're minimising totally the burden on the panellists. And so we've gone down the option of developing an app for a mobile phone. And one of the things which I'll refer to in the findings from the London trial is at the moment the only burden that the panellists are having to do is they only have to charge their phone once a day. And that's the only thing that they have to do. The rest of the time they're carrying their mobile phone as normal. So, what is MediaCell, or our smarter phone? Well, essentially, what we're doing is we are taking advantage of nature. We're using an encoded signal. People talk about what we're doing is putting an inaudible signal in to the real-time broadcast stream. This is not something that is massively high in frequency, that only animals can hear, or massively low in frequency. It's actually a false echo, and we're actually taking advantage of nature. When I'm talking to you now, my voice is going through the microphone and coming out of the speakers, and you're getting my voice, beautiful though it is, echoing at you from every single hard surface around this room. Much though you'd like to, your brain cannot cope with the thousands of echoes of my voice coming at you. So it shuts off naturally several thousand milliseconds after the initial first sound. So what we're doing is we're putting a false echo real time into the broadcast stream, which is audible, but it's actually blocked out by human ears, but can be picked up by an electronic microphone. For example, a device that's installed within a mobile phone. And this chart gives you a quick summary of what I've been discussing.
Discow concentrated on the ball. Ciara genuine midfield responsibilities. What I was talking about before was my last corner. Look at the edge of the box there. On the left, Pina runs the four-way. Now look at Carsley at the edge of the box. What I'm saying is maybe if Everton had just given it a bit of thought to...
So what we've developed hand in hand along with the software approach is a standard encoder which installs in the broadcast chain, whichever level you wish, whether it's total broadcast or via platform, which places a very small amount of information, 20 bits, real time into the broadcast chain, so that in the trials that we've been doing and also trials with the BBC quality control, it is inaudible. It's also not affecting any kind of echo or any kind of time lag. So DJs, when they're broadcasting and they're hearing what they're saying, there is no gap between what they're broadcasting, what they're saying, and what is being broadcast. There's no slight sound in their ears. So, for those of you who didn't see at the start where I was on mobile phones, this is our app in operation. So that's something called Radius, which sits in the
love music,
background
smooth radio.
of the mobile phone. And it detects up to 30 seconds. So what you see here is we've picked up after 7 seconds, and then as the clock runs through, these are all the little individual timestamps that the devices have picked up. And as I said, there are 10 of these phones sort of scattered around the room, and I'm happy to sort of take you through afterwards more detail about that. But that gives you, for those that didn't see as it came in, how it works in operation. But it works totally in the background. It switches on when the phone is switched on, and the panelists have to do nothing other than charge their phone and carry their phone with them as they would normally. So, a summary of the process is that we're installing the encoders at the radio stations. We passively manage that process and the quality controller remotely via iMonitors. There's a small amount of decoding that takes place on the phone itself. Being a mobile phone, the data can be transferred back to our servers by GPRS. At the moment that's happening twice a day, but we can increase that frequency. We will then collect the data edit that data, and produce ratings. So, my final couple of charts, I'm going to cover the trial in London that we've been carrying over the last number of months. Initially, we installed on the FM frequencies of TalkSport, Absolute and Smooth, and we carried out a trial over a 4-week period, just to test end-to-end. We're now installed at KISS, Magic and XFM. We've had the encoders with Andrew Mason, the BBC engineer, who's looking to carry out the full quality control on that. He's verbally given us confirmation that he's happy, as happy as he gets, with what we've done, and we're waiting for written confirmation of that. We've had 20 panellists installed for a 4-week period. We have 50 scheduled now for November, who are going to carry the device now for a 3-month period. And we're aiming to build that up to around about 200 by year end or into the first quarter of 2011. And we're examining the data both we get back, both in terms of the code words that were received, but also the compliance. Is it being used normally? What is the information we're getting behind that? Testing a whole end-to-end process from placement through to incentives. What we've learned to date, because it's completely passive measure, it's on a mobile phone, participation is no problem. The end-to-end process works. I'll share with you briefly some of the compliance data, but also from looking at the data, what we have found is that it confirms our initial thoughts about electronic measurements, in that we are picking up shorter listening periods, but there are more of them. And what we're planning to test next are, as I say, 3-month participation, a greater number of stations, and start to ramp up our back-end systems and reporting. The exit interviews, you won't be surprised, people were very, very happy. They didn't really notice that they were involved in the trial. It was their mobile phone, they carried it with them all the time. Excuse me. We're picking up 3 levels of compliance. Firstly, the code words, so the encoding signal, are we actually picking that up? Is it timestamped, or are we receiving the data back? But also, because it's an app on the phone, we're picking up all different levels of activity. We're picking up the phone activity, which telecommunications area, the cell ID, location, inertia, whether the phone's on, whether it's off, whether it's being charged or not. And then finally, we're picking up all the user activity, when they're making and receiving calls. when they're making and receiving texts, keystrokes, games, etc. And this penultimate chart really sort of looks at some of the information we're getting back in terms of compliance. The bottom line is actually looking at the code words, which are the green vertical lines. But you can see here, starting at 7:32, running for an hour-long period, we're picking up when the phone was on charge, which cell ID it's in. The third line down is whether the phone was moving. User events, which the orange vertical lines, which is when the keypad was pressed. Phone events, with no calls made or received over that period. The battery level, it's not picking up exactly what's being listened to previously before the code words come in, but it is picking up the background noise. So all of these, in some kind of combination and in conversations with you, will help us define a new definition of listening, a combination of those code words and compliance information to build that up. So, what have we learned so far? The device takes up to 30 seconds to detect codes, 90 seconds to detect from being switched on. From that point, it's detecting code words every 30 seconds. Battery life is unaffected. If all we're asking people to do is to charge once a day. And we can produce data real time if necessary. And we're now documenting our tests about the device working in bags, in jackets, in clothes, etc. So, next to come, moving away from our test area, which is the Symbian operating system with Nokia, to Android, Microsoft and other operating systems. I realise I just lied and said about my penultimate chart. This is my penultimate chart. Move to an installation by text, perhaps developing an audio matching solution, looking at GPS location services, looking at cross-media, radio, TV potentials, and also moving to the area of not just of audience measurement, but in terms of effectiveness studies, knowing when people are exposed to particular kind of advertising content, and then also using the device as AJ to actively then intervening and asking about what they remember. And then finally, why we used Symbian, because initially it was the market leader in terms of operating systems. We are migrating now to both Android and Windows operating systems, which we will have solutions for within the next 12-month period, and then we have to address for the issue of the iPhone. So that's what I wanted to discuss with you, and I think that completes the discussion.